They haven't spoken to the outside world in years, but the silence is screaming. Locked in a high-security asylum, the silent twins are trapped in a suffocating psychological war. Their pact is simple, dark, and absolute. A life for a life. The ending is closer than you think. Watch. You are looking at two girls who built a fortress out of silence, shutting out a world that never understood them. But behind the quiet facade lay a volatile, suffocating war that would eventually demand the ultimate sacrifice. They were born in the heart of shadows, June and Jennifer, two halves of a singular, fractured soul. The pact was forged in the silence of their own skin. Not a word spoken to the outside world, only to each other. They were a closed circuit of darkness. Others tried to force them open. Teachers pleaded. Parents screamed. The twins remained iron-willed statues. Their language was secret, a coded cadence only they understood. It was a suffocating, beautiful trap. They didn't just share a life, they shared a destiny. Every flicker of an eye was a conversation. Every subtle shift in posture was a command. They were two bodies tethered by invisible wire. No one else was invited into their sanctuary. The world outside was noise, a chaotic, intrusive hum that meant nothing. They preferred the void. In that void, they were queens of their own bleak reality. They watched the world burn from behind the glass of their unblinking gaze. The pact was absolute. It was blood. It was breath. It was the only thing that mattered. Nothing else existed. No one else survived their intense, locked-in gaze. They were a singular entity, dressed in two skins. A haunting, mirror image nightmare. The silence began and it would never truly end. School was a battleground they refused to fight. They sat like statues in the back of the classroom. The silence was a weapon. It cut through the chatter of the other students. It was heavy. It was oppressive. It demanded attention while offering nothing. Teachers were baffled by this wall of mute defiance. They tried every trick in the book. They used kindness. They used force. The twins didn't budge. They existed in a different dimension. A world built on static and internal monologue. They were ghosts haunting their own chairs. The other children mocked them. They called them names. They pushed. They shoved. The twins absorbed it all with a chilling, detached indifference. Their world was impenetrable. Nothing could bridge the gap between their silence and the loud, frantic reality of childhood. They were islands, isolated by choice, protected by the absolute power of their own isolation. Every movement was synchronized. Every silence was practiced. They moved as one organism through the crowded hallways. A strange, silent anomaly in a noisy, vibrant world. The silence wasn't a lack of communication. It was a language so dense that no outsider could ever hope to translate it. They were simply gone from the world, even when sitting right in front of everyone. Being different is a sin in the suburbs. Being black in a sea of white faces only added to the isolation. They were marked early. Outsiders, pariahs. Their home was a fortress of secrets. They retreated into their bedroom like wounded animals. The world became a distant, blurred shape. They developed their own customs, their own reality. They played with dolls as if they were live beings. They created epic, violent dramas in their heads. The dolls were their puppets. Their play was terrifyingly intense. It mirrored their own fragmented psyche. Their parents watched from the doorway, helpless and horrified. They saw the intensity of the bond and feared what it meant. The twins ignored them. They were busy sculpting a universe that excluded all adults. They became masters of their own domain. They refused to eat, refused to speak, refused to conform. It was a total rejection of the life laid out for them. They were building something dark in the quiet corners of their house. Something that would eventually consume them. Every day was a rehearsal for a life they were not meant to lead. They were trapped in a cycle of repression and internal explosion. Growing up was not an evolution. It was a slow, deliberate shrinking of their souls. The language was a cipher. It was faster than speech. It was emotional shorthand. They didn't need words, they had gazes, they had micro-expressions that spoke volumes. They documented their dark thoughts in journals. Pages filled with agonizingly small, tight script. The prose was violent. It was lonely. It was a cry for help that no one was meant to hear. The language was theirs alone. It excluded parents, teachers, and police. It was a secret weapon against the world. They were constantly whispering, yet never audible. It was a physical exertion to keep the language secret. They were always on edge, always vigilant. They protected their internal world with the ferocity of soldiers. Any intrusion was met with absolute silence. The language allowed them to live two lives simultaneously, one in the open, one in the dark. The dark life was the one that fed them. It was where they made their plans. It was where they felt safe. But safety is an illusion when you are sharing a head with another person. The language eventually began to distort reality. It blurred the lines between fantasy and intent. It made the unthinkable feel necessary. It was the foundation of their eventual ruin. The fantasy collapsed into reality. Words weren't enough anymore. They needed action. The silence had to be broken by destruction. They started small, petty thefts, vandalism. Then came the fire. They wanted to see the world burn. They wanted to destroy the structures that held them back. The arson was their first true scream into the night. It felt electric. It felt dangerous. They were no longer just observers. They were actors in a tragedy of their own making. The chaos they ignited in the streets mirrored the chaos inside their minds. Every flicker of flame was a victory against the boredom of their existence. They were emboldened. They were reckless. The authorities finally took notice. They weren't just weird girls anymore. They were threats. The escalation was inevitable. It was the physical manifestation of their deep-seated resentment. They burned the very bridges that might have led them to sanity. They danced in the glow of the fires they set. It was a frantic, desperate ritual of self-destruction. They were hunting for a way out of their own skin. They didn't realize they were only trapping themselves further. The police were coming, the doors were closing. Their life in the sun was ending. The descent had finally begun. The heavy iron gates of Broadmoor slammed shut. The world outside vanished instantly. Here they were no longer just June and Jennifer. They were patients, prisoners of their own minds. They existed in a labyrinth of red brick and cold concrete. The doctors circled like vultures. They picked at the twins' silence. They poked at the trauma. June withdrew further into the shadows. Jennifer fought the walls with a silent, burning rage. The silence here wasn't a choice anymore. It was a weapon. They communicated in blinks and tiny tremors of the hands. The nurses watched them constantly. The flickering fluorescent lights created long, distorted shapes on the peeling walls. Each night felt like an eternity. Each day was a ritual of observation. They were specimens. They were ghosts locked in a cage. Their diaries grew thick with madness. The ink ran black like spilled blood. Nobody understood the pact. Nobody could hear the frequency they tuned into. They were drowning in the institutional grey. The scent of antiseptic choked their lungs. They were being erased by the system. The walls pressed in tighter every single hour. They were waiting for a miracle. Or perhaps they were waiting for the end. The silence deepened until it became a deafening roar inside their skulls. They were trapped in the belly of the beast. The pact demanded a final sacrifice. One must die for the other to live. The atmosphere in their cell grew toxic. The air felt heavy with the scent of ozone and impending doom. They stared at each other with eyes that saw into the abyss. Jennifer finally spoke the words that haunted them both. A life for a life. The bargain was sealed in the suffocating quiet of their room. It was not a murder. It was a transaction of souls, the transition of burden from one twin to the other. Jennifer grew weaker by the day. She felt the life draining out of her marrow. She welcomed the cold embrace of the inevitable. June watched, paralyzed by the weight of the agreement. The pact was a chain that bound them across the veil of reality. It was a terrifying symphony of devotion. She stopped eating. She stopped breathing. The silence had finally claimed its prize. Jennifer slipped away into the void. The room went unnervingly cold. The silence shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. June was left sitting on the edge of the bed. The empty space beside her burned like a brand. She was finally alone. The pact was fulfilled in the most horrific fashion imaginable. A hollow shell remained. The release came like a sudden thunderclap. Jennifer was gone. The pact was finished. June walked out into the world, a stranger in her own skin. She felt the sun for the first time in over a decade, but the ghost of her sister remained. Every shadow reminded her of the half she lost. Every reflection was a distorted memory of the girl who died in that hospital. She was technically free, but the walls of Broadmoor had moved inside her mind. She walked the streets with an invisible companion. She carried the secrets of their private language to the grave. The world seemed bright, loud, and aggressively alien. She looked for peace in the mundane. She never found it. The tragedy was woven into her DNA. She was a single note in a song that required two. The silence she carried was now a solitary cage. She was liberated from the asylum, but enslaved by the grief. She existed in the margins of life, a survivor of an impossible union. The public watched her like a relic. She moved through the crowd with her head bowed. The twin who survived. The twin who remained. The story ended in whispers. The pact left a scar that would never fade. The silent twins finally had their answer. Was the pact a genuine spiritual agreement, or a tragic manifestation of a shared psychosis? Did Jennifer truly choose to die so her sister could finally breathe, or was it a cruel twist of fate? We may never know the truth behind the silence, but the legacy of the twins remains a haunting reminder of the power of the human mind. Subscribe to Nova After Dark for more deep dives into the shadows.